After the Meraglim come back and try to scare the Yidden about the strength of the nations in Eretz Yisrael, etc., Yeshua and Kalev say, Ach ba Hashem al timroidu, do not rebel against Hashem, v'atem al tiru es hamoritz, do not fear the people of the land, ki lachmeinu heim, they are our bread, sartzilo me'aleim, their shade has been removed from them, their protection has been removed, as we'll see, v'Hashem itanu, Hashem is with us, al tiraum, do not fear them. On the words al timroidu, do not rebel, Rashi says, v'shuv v'atem al tiru, if you don't rebel against Hashem, then you won't fear these nations. What's forcing Rashi to explain it in this way, and not just that it's two separate statements? Don't rebel against Hashem, and do not fear the Goyim. That's the first question that Rebbe has. On the next Rashi, Ki lachmeinu heim, where it says they are our bread, Rashi says, Noichleim kalechem, we're going to eat them like bread. Says the Rebbe, seemingly, what's Rashi telling us? Seemingly, that's the way we would understand. Obviously, these nations are not bread. It would seem to be that it's saying they'll be as easy to win them like bread. Why specifically bread? Why not just eat them like food? Why bread specifically? Then Rashi goes on in the word sartzilam, their shade has been removed. Rashi says, maginam, their protection, v'chazkam, their strength. The righteous amongst them died. Eiv, that was protecting them. And then Rashi says, davar achar, another explanation. Tzila means the shade of Hashem was removed from over them. The question here that Rebbe has is, why do we need both Pirushim? So to start explaining, the Rebbe says, the Meraglim were telling the Yidden, were arguing that the nation is very, very strong. It seems to be that Yeshua and Kalev are not contradicting and disagreeing with this claim. If that's the case, why shouldn't the Yidden be afraid? What would it mean that they say out not to be afraid? This is why Rashi says, Al timroidu, don't rebel, and as a result of that, then al tiru, then you won't be afraid. That means if you don't rebel against Hashem, then you have nothing to be afraid of, because Hashem will be with you. Now we can also understand the continuation of Rashi, when he says, Noichleim kalechem, we're going to eat them like bread. What does he mean? Not that they're going to be as easy as bread. Not that we may think that just like bread is a necessity, so too to enter Eretz Yisrael is a necessity, and that's why you shouldn't be afraid of them. Rather, Noichleim Kalechem means, Rashi had told us already earlier in Parshas B'Shalach, when the Yidden had asked for bread, Rashi says, because they asked appropriately, therefore Hashem is going to give it to them in a way of chiba, in a way of love, with a panim ears, with a shining face. So too over here, Hashem is going to give the Bnei Yisrael the victory over these nations in a loving way, with a shining face. And that's going to strengthen even more this idea that the Yidden have absolutely nothing what to be afraid of. Now, as far as the two Pirushim in Sar Tzilim, that their shade has been removed, when we say Sar Tzilim Me'aleim, the shade has been removed from on top of them, that sounds like the shade still exists. It moved from over them to somewhere else. But according to Rashi's first Pirush, that Ksherim Shebehem, that the righteous ones died, that Eiv died, then it means that that shade is no longer around at all, not that it moved from one place to the other. Even though B'doichik, you could say, yes, as far as the nations are concerned, they don't have it anymore, so it doesn't make a difference if it's on them or it's somewhere else. But still, the word Sar Tzilam seems to be not so simple, and this is why Rashi has another Pirush that it refers to the shade of Hashem. The problem, however, with that Pirush is that when it says Sar Tzilam, their shade, it sounds like it's their own shade, which makes more sense according to the Pirush, that it means the righteous ones of amongst them, and not referring to the shade of Hashem. Now, from this point on, the Rebbe turns to a completely another angle on this Rashi, taking out certain aspects of halacha and chasidus and other inyanim of Pnimiyas HaTorah within this Rashi. Says the Rebbe like this: in regards to the tumah of a nevela, that means an animal that was not shechted properly causes something to be tomei. The Rambam paskins that a goy that shechts, so his shchita is considered like a nevela. That means it is considered that he shechted it, but it's not a proper shchita, it's a nevela, and therefore it causes tumah. The Ravid argues and says that goyim are just like an animal. They don't become tamei, they don't make other things tamei. The Ravid uses the expression, he says someone that considers the goyim as anything is like trying to hold air in your palms, in your hands. The Kesef Mish, and therefore the Ravid argues that You can't consider their shchita as a tumah of a nevela at all. The Kesef Mishnah asks, what difference does it make if they do make something tameh or they don't make something tameh? We're speaking about their shchita. So the Ragachover comes along and explains that when could you say that a goy could ruin a shchita and make it into a nevela and therefore cause tumah? That's if the one doing the shchita, is some sort of existence. But if the goy is a non-existence, you cannot say that he's making something into a nevela either and causing the tumah. And therefore a behemoth that the goy would shecht, according to the Raavad, would just be as if a behemoth that died by itself, and therefore it's a nevela, but not because of his shchita. Says the Rebbe, this machloikas, whether the goy is considered a metzias in existence or not, is also connected to the whole concept of hashgacha pratis, of how it applies to a goy. According to the Rambam would come out that the goy is a metzias, and therefore the concept of hashgacha pratis applies to them as well, whereas according to the Raavad, they're a non-existence, so the regular concept of hashgacha pratis wouldn't apply to them. Says the Rebbe, this will now fit with the two pirushim of Rashi, of whether we're speaking about the ksherim shebahem, the strength of the goyim themselves, the righteous ones amongst them, or we're speaking about the protection, the shade of Hashem. This is going to be dependent on these two opinions of the Rambam and the Raavad. The first explanation, that it's referring to their strength is no longer there, their ksherim, their righteous ones are no longer there, that would fit with the shita of the Raavad, who says that they're a non-existence, the goyim, and therefore there's no regular hashgacha pratis by them either. So according to the Raavad, you can't say it's the shade of Hashem. What's the idea of a shade? What's the idea of a shadow? It's usually going to be measured according to the thing over which, or from which, it's a shadow. If the goyim are a non-existence, you can't say that they have the shadow of Hashem on them. And therefore, what the Raavad would say is like the first Pirush of Rashi, that their own righteous people died. Whereas according to the Rambam, that the goyim are also a metzias, are also in existence. You could say proper hashgacha pratis over them, and therefore you could say it's the shade of Hashem that was over them that's now no longer there. To explain a little bit more this idea of what does it mean a shade or a shadow, Chassidus explains, Torah of the Baal Shem Tov, that Hashem, on the pasuk Hashem Tzilcha, that Hashem is like the shadow of the person, that according to the person's action down here, just like a shadow moves according to the body, Hashem responds or reciprocates to the person according to his actions. In a similar way, although not exactly in the same way, but in a similar way will be by Goyim as well, that what they do brings forth an action and a reaction milamaila, and therefore will be a reward or a punishment, etc. But that's again only according to the opinion of the Rambam, that they are a metzias, they are in existence, and therefore the concept of hashgacha pratis applies to them. According to the Raavad, the goy is a non-existence. The whole point of the goy is only there, is completely secondary, only there for the yid. Even the mitzvahs that they have are only there in order to allow that the world should be able to be an inhabited, a settled place, so that the yidden could do their avodah, making a place for Hashem down here. And therefore, any reward and punishment that's associated with them is not that they had caused a certain reward or a certain punishment. It's more like the Torah says about an animal that had caused an aveda to a person, then we get rid of the animal as well. Meaning the whole tachlis is that you're serving the yid, so if you're not fulfilling that, then you're no longer here. But it's not that your particular avodah is going to bring about a particular reward or punishment. It says that now we can understand the two pirushim of Rashi. According to the first pirush, we're speaking about the strength, the protection of the goyim themselves coming from within themselves. That means they're righteous people. That means, yes, if they do what they're supposed to be doing, then there's a certain strength added to them, but it's not that it brings anything milamaila. We wouldn't say that it's the shade or the shadow of Hashem over them. Whereas according to the second pirush, when it goes according to the Rambam, that they are begeder metzias, they do have an existence, there is a particular hashgacha pratis on them. They do achieve things lamaila. You could say, it's referring to the shade of Hashem over them. That means what they do brings about a certain protection from Hashem. And therefore, we translate tzilom as the tzeil shel mokim. Says the Rebbe, but even according to the shita of the Rambam, that they are a metzias, and there is hashgacha pratis. Nevertheless, it's nowhere close to the way it's by Bnei Yisrael, because at the end of the day, it's still only called a tzeil. The idea of a shadow is the idea of makif. It's only surrounding, it's protecting from above. So what does the pasuk say further? That by the goyim, even their tzeil moved away now. But V'Hashem Yitanu, regarding a Yid, Hashem is mamish with him in a way of panimius, in a real union, in a real bond, and therefore Al Tiram, there's absolutely nothing to be afraid of them, and the Yidden can enter safely into Eretz Yisrael.